So these are beginner tips that you need to do before you start door dashing. So number one is know your drop-off location and make sure it's an area where you can start getting orders right away after the drop-off. By this, I mean don't drop off an order if it's going off deep into a resident neighborhood where you could drive all the way back, because that's just more miles on your car. Instead, what you want to do is make sure your next drop-off is right next to another hotspot where you can start taking orders right away. So tip number 2 is to multi-app. Multi-apping is using multiple apps at once, such as Instacart, Grubhub, and Uber Eats, along with DoorDash. The benefits of multi-apping is you have more orders to choose from, which means you can be more selective, which results in better orders. Also, while you're dropping off your order, you could turn all your apps on so you can start accepting orders while you're still driving to your drop-off, meaning there'll be an order ready for you right when you drop it off. Number 3 would be know your area, or don't always rely on the hotspots that DoorDash gives you in the app. So this is a map of my area. As you can see in the middle, it looks like it's the busiest, but I actually know that over here is better just because from experience of door dashing. So play out your area, try to find out what works best for you. The hotspots aren't always accurate, they're just recommendations of where you could go. Also, knowing your area means knowing the restaurants around you and which ones take a long time or which ones are quick. For example, some McDonald's might be kind of fast, but some McDonald's might have long drive-through lines with no lobby open, which will force you to wait in the super long drive-through line or just cancel the order altogether. So the next one is kind of obvious, is dash during peak times. So the best time to DoorDash is usually between 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., which would be the dinner shift. Lunchtime is also good between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And nighttime after 9 p.m. actually isn't too bad as long as there's McDonald's, Wendy's available. I find that the morning around 7 a.m., 8 a.m. is actually the worst time to DoorDash. And I've never tried door dashing at like 2 or 3 a.m. So number 5 is something that a lot of new dashers get confused about, and that's acceptance rate. So if you look in your ratings, it'll show your acceptance rate, but it actually does not matter what your acceptance rate at all. People think that it may cause them to get less orders, but that's not true. It's just a tool for you to use to look at, which honestly isn't really useful. But the only ratings that matter is your customer rating and your completion rate. Completion rate drops whenever you accept an order and you end up canceling it due to whether it be long wait lines or whatever other reason. So the next tip is when you know you're about to stop ending your dash soon, is to dash along the way back home. What I mean by this is start accepting orders that lead you back to your house and stop accepting orders that lead you farther away from your house. That way at the end of your dash, you don't have to drive 25 minutes back to your house because you weren't really paying attention to where they were going. Tip number 7 is bring your own food and water. This is important because a lot of people spend money on fast food, which really sucks because it's like you just did that order just to pay $7 for some Chick-fil-A. I mean, Chick-fil-A is pretty good and all, but the whole point of working is to make money, so you want to be making some money. Also, you want to bring some water because you don't want to be just dashing for 6-7 hours without water, having to ask people through the drive-thru if you get a cup of water, or walking around restaurants looking for water fountains. So I know that tip seems kind of obvious and dumb, but it actually makes a big difference, especially when you're dashing for long periods of time. So the next tip is how to select an order, and the most important factor in selecting an order, aside from your drop-off location, which we discussed earlier, is your dollar per mile ratio. So you want to set a standard based on your market for what is good order for you. If you're in an area that isn't so good, you might lower your standards to, about $1 per mile, $1.50 per mile, but if you're in the city, you could raise them for $2 per mile. It really depends on your area, but the main thing is don't accept anything under $1 per mile. Personally, I don't accept anything that's under $1.50 per mile. Another thing that you want to keep in mind when doing is after you drop off an order, try to start accepting orders as soon as possible and try to avoid driving too much back to your area. If you have to drive a little bit to start getting orders, is one thing, but you don't want to drive 6-7 miles without getting paid just to drive to a hot spot and sit there in your car. And the last tip I have is keep track of your miles, because when it comes tax season, the amount of miles that you drive gives you a tax deduction, and you want to keep track of this number. There are certain apps out there that let you do this. I recommend downloading one of them. So yeah, those are some quick tips that'll help you out in beginner DoorDash. DoorDash is pretty good. You can make up to $25 an hour or more if you do it right and if you're in a decent area. If this video was educational to you in any way, please subscribe and like the video. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. Any likes, comments, or subscribing would help my YouTube channel very much. So keep dashing. See you in the next video.